Hello YouTube, this is Tom from Tom's Test Kitchen, and today I'm going to make homemade kimchi. I want to make Korean barbecued ribs, and what better to go with it than kimchi. I usually buy the jarred kimchi in the grocery store, and it's good, it's good, but you know, like anything else, homemade is always better, and I have always wanted to do this. I have this really great old cookbook, the Hawaiian Cookbook and Backyard Luau. This is actually a really good book. It's from 1967. I have been collecting old cookbooks for over 20 years, and that's one of my favorites. I love it. It's got some really great recipes. And I've always wanted to try making the kimchi, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it today. So, first I'm going to take and remove these really tough outer leaves. I really don't want them. Because I'm going to need recipe calls for 2 pounds. Yeah, it should be good. That'll go in the composter. Recipe calls for 2 pounds, so let's see how much I get out of this. And now it actually, the book calls for celery cabbage. And celery cabbage is also known as Napa cabbage. So that's what this is. This is a big head of Napa cabbage. It's actually closer to 3 pounds, but I think once I take the outer leaves off and then cut pretty much the core, the heavy base, cut all that off because you really don't want all that, into the composter. So here's what I'm left with. That's probably about 2 pounds. So I'm gonna start chopping this up, and it says to chop it in about 1.5 inches. So I'm just gonna do it like so. Just give it a rough chop. Like that. It's about what you want. So I'm going to go ahead and chop this up, and then I'm going to rinse it. And I'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, cabbage is all chopped and washed. I like to do this in the salad spinner. Fill the bowl up with water. And then just, you know, agitate it with your hands. Then you just lift it out. Pour out the water. I'm going to rinse this bowl. Just wipe it real quick. What I want to do now is add this cabbage to this bowl. And get a spoon. And then I've got a 1/2 cup of, it calls for coarse salt. I assume that means kosher salt. I'm using kosher salt, so could mean pickling salt. I'm going to go with the kosher salt. So that's a 1/2 cup of kosher salt. Then I just want to mix this really well. Okay, that's only been about 5 minutes, and you can see how much this cabbage has reduced in size. A lot of liquid there. This is actually a good technique for making coleslaw, where you would take your shredded cabbage and then add a little bit of salt and let all the moisture come out, and then pour that liquid out, and then you won't end up with like a really soggy sauerkraut coleslaw. But I want all that liquid, so I'm going to put the cabbage and the liquid all into this nice clean container. I can't wait. This is going to be good. I mean, I love kimchi. I love sauerkraut. This is basically, whoops, pay more attention instead of talking. Basically a Korean sauerkraut. Really spicy, really flavorful. Back in there, you. Clean up my mess here. Okay. Look at that whole 2 pounds of cabbage. Now I'm going to do something with this that I have never done. I'm going to end up canning this. I'm going to can this after it's been processed and fermented. I'm going to can it in, it'll probably fit into 2 pint jars. So I'm going to try that for my first canning attempt. Now it calls for a quart of water. This is bottled water. We don't drink the water out of the tap because it's very chlorinated, and this right now, going through this drought, the lake where the water comes from is kind of funky, so it has kind of a funky smell and flavor to it, so I'm using the bottled water. I don't think I'm going to need this whole quart of water. Really. Because there was a lot of moisture, a lot of water released in that. But it called for a quart of water. So I'm going to add that. Probably because of all the salt. Because once this is done fermenting, you're going to pour this water off anyway, so I guess, you know, I don't want it to be too salty. So I'm going to go with that whole quart. And now what I'm going to do, recipe didn't call for this, but I've made sauerkraut before, and this is always a good idea, is to cover the top with a paper towel or a paper napkin, and then secure it with a rubber band so no dust or flying insects or anything gets in it, because this actually is going to sit out on the counter for 1 day. Okay, day 2 of the kimchi. The Napa cabbage has been brining on the counter overnight. Looks good. Really giving off quite a pungent odor, but that's what it's supposed to do. So now I'm just going to drain this and rinse it really good. And it is. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to rinse this out really good and then wipe it clean, because I'm going to start the fermenting in that same container. And what I've got here, this is the red pepper, the hot red pepper mixture that I came up with, because the book was kind of vague. It just said hot red pepper, and I would assume that you know, kimchi is Korean, and traditionally you would use a Korean pepper, red pepper, called gochugaru. And I figured that would be a little tough for most people to try to find that. So I think I've come up with a pretty good approximation. I did some more research, and it's not as hot. It's not nearly as spicy as cayenne pepper or crushed red pepper. So most recipes that called for using the Korean red pepper said specifically not to use cayenne or crushed red pepper because they would be too hot. So I think I've come up with a good alternative. It's actually crushed red pepper that I bought today, and paprika, because the Korean red pepper is very red, and I think the paprika really gives that, and it kind of mellows it out a little bit. So I have a tablespoon of crushed red pepper and a tablespoon of paprika, and it's not bad. It's got a nice flavor, it's got enough heat, and I simply put the paprika and the crushed red peppers in my spice and nut grinder here, and turn it into a nice powder. So I think this is going to be fine. And I love this. This is my Cuisinart spice and nut grinder. It's nice because the bowl comes off and you can put that in the dishwasher, so it's easy to clean. I love that thing. Use it a lot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the red pepper, put it in a bowl, and I've got here, whoa, sorry, in the way there. I keep forgetting this tripod is so big. So what I've got here is 1 clove of garlic finely minced, a teaspoon of finely minced fresh ginger, and 2 scallions or green onions that have been minced. So you just want to add all of these together and then create a paste. Now I did some more research on kimchi and found some more traditional Korean recipes, and a lot of them call for fish sauce, believe it or not, which is actually found more in Vietnamese cooking. So I'm just gonna kind of mix this together and then mash it and create a paste, and then I'm gonna finish draining the cabbage and then put this together, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, got the peppers and the garlic and the scallions and the ginger all mixed up, mashed up into a nice paste. This was where a mortar and pestle would have come in handy, but I don't have one, so in a small bowl in the back of a spoon works just as well. Okay, I've got my cabbage all rinsed, drained and rinsed. Nice clean container. Look at that, how much that has reduced down to. That was 2 pounds of cabbage. Okay, so I'm just gonna dump this all in. And then mix it up really good. Get all that peppery goodness off of there. Just mix this in really good. There we go. Okay, I'm going to put this back, put a top on this and put this in the refrigerator, and then it's going to ferment for 3 to 4 days, and then it'll be ready to eat. Starting to smell like kimchi already. Look at that. It's beautiful. That's going to be so good, I can't wait to try that. Okay, I'll see you back here in 3 to 4 days once it's fermented. Okay, it's been 3 days in the fridge. Looks really good. Let's take a sample here. It smells good too. Look at that, homemade kimchi. Boy, it tastes really good. Cabbage is still nice and crunchy. It's a little spicier than the brand that I usually buy, the jarred brand that I buy in the grocery store, which I like. I always thought that was kind of mild, but this pepper mixture seemed to work out really well. Can't wait to have Korean style beef ribs and some white rice. This will go perfect with that. Can't stop eating it. It's good stuff. Definitely homemade is better. Well, there you have it. Definitely a thumbs up. Make yourself some homemade kimchi.